Alright, I don't know why I'm seeing this on my screen. What's the deal? So, alright, I don't know why I'm seeing this on my screen. What's the deal? So, alright, I don't know why I'm seeing this. All right, so cool. I believe I can be heard now. Okay, so I'm good. Can y'all hear me? I see y'all in the chat room. Can I be heard? If I can be heard clearly, can somebody speak up in the chat room, please? Mic check. Hold on, let me check this real quick. Y'all can hear me? You hear the kids in the background too? They yelling and everything. Oh man, yeah, I can't really do nothing about that, but for the most part. All right, cool. All right, so we're gonna be dealing with end time prophecy, Zechariah 14 and Revelation 11. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys to a couple of the sites that I deal with, as well as biblically, and also looking at the conflict that's going on across the seas, which is very important. So I'm going to screen share here and take you guys to a I'm going to screen share the boy Josu Garcia. I see you. Let me see. Let's go to. They hate this site. The Black Hebrew Israelite hate this site, but this site is great information. So I'm going to this now. All right, let me screen share. Let's screen share. All right, so let me see if I'm clear. Yes, everything up there. Okay, this site right here. Hold on. Is a very good site. Something y'all want to check with. You know, the Great Middle East War, the members of the Confederacy. Now, there's a couple of things I want to bring out here in regards to the tents of Edom, which as y'all see, they have it listed as Palestinians, right? Psalms 83, 5 and 6. Let's look at what it says. It says, "For they have consulted together with one consent. They form a confederacy against you, the tents of Edom." And for one that reads the text, you know that concerning the tents of Edom, you look at Psalms 83 and you see the confederacy. Now, this confederacy is also mentioned in Obadiah 1, verses 6 through 7. Oh, how Esau shall be searched out, how his hidden treasure shall be sought after. All the men in your confederacy shall force you to the border. The men at peace with you shall deceive you and prevail against you. Those who eat your bread shall lay a trap for you. No one is aware of it. So when we look at this text, right, we can clearly see that when you're talking about the tents of Edom and the confederacy, we could find that in Psalms 83, 5 and 6 verses, and also Obadiah, which said the man of Edom's confederacy is going to push them into the borders, right? Even force you to the border, right? So we know this happened with the Nabateans and the Arabs that forced Edom to the borders of Jerusalem, or to their own borders. Now let's look at this, right? Because this helps us with the conflict. This is very great information. Take a look at this. Now, I want to bring out something. Now, if you look, right, and remember, mark down this site. They hate this site because this is good information. If you look at this, this is Israel, right? And this is over here Transjordan. Now, the conflict that we see in the land today, right, is concerning boundaries. Even Israel itself is still being trodden down of Gentiles because of boundaries. We see. So let's look at this. Obadiah. Jump down to the nitty gritty, matter of fact. We look at it, says the trees of Israel, Judges 9. Israel as a nation, the fig tree, Matthew 21. Israel's spiritual state, divine, Isaiah 5. Israel's salvation, the olive tree, Romans 11, right? So he's on the point about a lot of stuff. Watch how he starts to mention and points out the geographical areas of what's really going on here. Y'all gonna want to look through this. He talks about even Amalek and the land of Edom, and he calls it Southern Jordan. Watch Amos. It says, "Thus said the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away its punishment, because he pursued his brother with the sword and cast off all pity. His anger tore perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. But I will send a fire upon Teman, which should devour the places of Basra." Now, when you look at the text, right, there are a lot of scriptures, right? The website that I'm using right now is Tracking Bible Prophecy. Tracking Bible Prophecy. You're going to want to check that site out. Like, this site talks about the conflict that's in the land today, the conflict that was in the land back then. Because remember, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel are talking about immediate judgments and also future judgments. He's going in and out. That's why when we read the text, when it talks about in Isaiah 13 and also Isaiah 11 and Isaiah 14 and also Isaiah 7, in regards to the Messiah, he gives us an immediate deliverance of Israel and a judgment. And then he also gives us a future that when God, just as God has delivered them from this king, God will later on deliver them from rulers and kings by the hand of the Messiah, right? So Isaiah is basically dealing with immediate judgments and also future judgments. Yeah, you might want to look into this. Just, when you look into it, always take your scriptures and line them up. Like, what I like about this is because he lines his scriptures up. Now, I'm not saying take all of it, but he's lining this site up with the conflicts in the scriptures. And so I've even went through a lot of these, with dealing with the land, you know what I'm saying? Dealing with prophecy of these lands. Ammon being in northern Jordan. So he's going off when it comes to the Damascus. Assyria is Damascus. When it comes to these different things, he's going in and explaining these nations. And he also has maps today showing you basically these ancient areas and what this conflict is all about. And so that's just half of Lebanon is Tyre. You know what I'm saying? Then he give you ancient maps showing you of these things. So this is a good site, you know, to always go to. Zechariah 11, open ye doors, O Lebanon, that fire may devour your cedars. Well, O Cyprus, for the cedars have fallen because the mighty trees are ruined. So you know, just check it out. This is one of the sites that I use. But let me tell you something about this site just as well. Let's look at this. If you look down in this column over here, you can clearly see that it has a menu and it has different topics here. Birth pain tracker, earthquake graphs, Revelation commentary, the Olivet discourse, the pre-tribulation rapture, Israel, Gog and Magog war, Great Middle East war, Antichrist, prophetic puzzle, the Jewish wedding, prophetic patterns and numbers, right? Well, basically, this website, once again, is trackingbibleprophecy.com. Trackingbibleprophecy.com. And far as Jose, well, what we see is when you deal with prophetic words is basically, you know, dealing with messages to forewarn, could be messages of encouragement, you know, instructions, basically instructing people for something that is at hand, or just encouragement. You know what I'm saying? Things is that you know. Hold on for a minute. Hold on, y'all. All right. I don't know who just fell, but somebody fell. Hold on, y'all. All right. So, look through this. Now, I want birth pain tracker. So, look what he has. He has.
Congratulations. You have been selected to take part in our.
I don't know how to stop these silly what you call. I might have to talk to somebody to help me with that. So all right, so when you look right, it says tracking the birth pains. Luke 21:25 through 28, it says, and there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them, for fear and expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heaven will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. Now, when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your eyes or your heads, because your redemption is draws near. Now, let's look at something. Now, when you look right, it says tracking Bible prophecy. Let's go down a little bit. Headlines. Now, he gives us an update 11/26/2016. All of these things right here, when you look at them, right, is basically Israeli settler leader fires divine punishment for planned settlement uproot. Massive fire threatens homes at Jerusalem area settlement. Israel fires. Al-Qaeda linked Palestinian militant group claims responsibility for devastating Haifa blaze. Largest firefighter aircraft in the world lands in Israel. Foreign planes combat Israel wildfires as arrests made. Dozens of Cyprus firefighters arrive. Israel thanks Palestinian counterparts. Palestinians, Arabs, and Jewish Israeli collaborate to quench flames. Palestinian tries to stab troops in East Jerusalem is shot dead. Palestinians and Israelis are now fighting over corpses. Trump win could give Israel freer hands with Palestinians. It says 90% of Gaza has no clean drinking water. Ukraine synagogue desecrated with death to Jews graffiti. So as you can see, a lot of conflict is going on when you look at these guys just dealing with updated information. This has been updated 11/26/2016. So they're giving us all the news and all the things that we can use to watch concerning what's going on over there. Now, what's interesting is that the Bible says that all nations will surround Jerusalem and will hate Jerusalem. And they will be hated by all, will hate the Jews, and they will be hated by all nations, and they will surround Jerusalem. Now, I want to bring out a couple of things in Zechariah 12, 14, and also Revelations 11 today. And partially dealing with some things on Luke a little bit. Want to do that. So these are just some things you definitely want to look at and check these things out. Really look at these things. Just a site I want to show you guys that I usually use to get news and other things to see what's going on, to track Bible prophecy. This is the name of the site. It's called Tracking Bible Prophecy. So let's get up out of here. Go back. Okay, stop screen sharing. Now, let's get off into a couple of scriptures here. Let me open up information. Okay, now when you deal with you said I have a question. Who is one person that is in the 144,000? Who is one person that is in? Yeah, I'm not sure. All I know is the 144,000 are made up of Israelites from the tribes of Israel. These are natural Israelites. These are not spiritual Israelites. But I just wanted to bring that out and raise that question because that is one of the questions that is asked. So these are natural Israelites. These are not spiritual Israelites. Don't let nobody tell you that they are. And also they are evangelists. They have a work to do, far as in the tribulation period. And a lot of them will bring Israel back unto God, but they themselves also will be taken from the earth after the trumpet judgments. In the midst of the week, they will be taken from the earth, according to Revelation chapter 12. Now, they are seen on the earth in Revelation 7. And also in other chapters, they are seen on the earth because it is told for the locusts not to touch the earth nor the grass, but everything. To touch the earth and the grass, or some. I might be saying that wrong, but don't touch those that have the mark in their heads. And we know that those will be the 144,000. They are actually sealed in Revelation chapter 7, basically to go through the trumpet judgments. Because remember, we just had the seals to go forth, and now they are sealed to go through the trumpet judgments. We had 7 seals to go forth, and with 6, they're being sealed within a parenthetical passage up under the 6th seal. and then the seventh seal. I mean, the seventh seal is open, and then they basically go through. Matter of fact, let me get that because I don't want to be wrong on that. Let me make sure I'm right. I'll make sure I'm right on that. Let's jump to Revelation 6. Revelation 6. Yeah, yeah. So actually, they're sealed before the seventh seal goes forth. Because when we read Revelations 8 and 1, it says, "And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of an hour." So they are actually sealed up under they're sealed in their foreheads up under the sixth seal in a parenthetical passages. Then the eighth seal continues on in the eighth chapter of Revelation. I mean, the seventh seal continues on in the eighth chapter of Revelations, and then they are actually going to go through the trumpet judgments and be protected with the seals on them. And so, in the middle of the week, they will be taken. I believe that the man child that was caught up into heaven is the 144,000, and the woman that gave birth to the man child was Israel. And so most people may think that's Christ and talking about no, but that's talking about concerning at that time the man child being born from the nation of Israel and being caught up unto heaven. And this man child will rule with God just as well, or with Christ with a rod of iron. So that's my take on that, and that can be proven. Revelations 12, right, can be proven that the man child is the 144,000 that will be caught up in the midst of the week. The midst of the week, because it's 7 years of troublous times for Israel, concerning Daniel's clock in Daniel 9 and 24 through 27. So let's jump over here. Okay, one of the questions you asked, you said, why did God make evil? Well, when you look up the word evil, right, the word evil is actually raw. Like, matter of fact, let me pull this up for you, because it's something that has to be dealt with just as well too. Let me get out of here and jump to my word search. Hold on. All right, jump to word search real quick. I'm going to screenshot here. All right, so let's jump to Genesis. Isaiah. Where is it at? Isaiah 45. And we're gonna continue on. Let me just jump over here real quick. Isaiah 45 and I want to say 7. It says, all right, right here. Yes, that's it. All right, so here it is right here. So if you can see, I got my screen big enough so you guys can look at it, I believe. So let's look at this. And I think that far as Raquel, far as when you deal with it's figurative more so. I think it's more so figurative, and it's due to the fact of them not, fornicating with this adulterous generation or mystery Babylon. And so during their task, I think it's figurative. We'll have to look at it a little bit more in the Greek though to really pull it out. Because I know it says virgins there, and that's kind of hard to look at because it's usually dealing with women. But there are certain Greek passages that, you know, are just with certain Greek words that list man as virgins just as well. So that's the problem with that. But I form the light and create darkness. I notice he says I form the light and create darkness. Understand that, you know, he forms light, and we know he forms the luminaries and all of those things, and it says he create darkness. So darkness is actually something that is created, and reason why darkness is created because it's due to space. You know, once you create space, then, you know, space brings in darkness. So, you know, that's how that goes forth. It says, I make peace and I create evil. Now, the word there for evil is in the strong 7451, right? Let's look at it.
Ra.
And it's Ra, right? Almost sound like the Egyptian word Ra, you know what I'm saying? But that it is sound like that, right? Okay. This English words used in the KJV, you know what I'm saying? It's used evil 442 times, wickedness 59. But let's really look at it and get the entirety of it. It says Ra, bad, evil, natural, adversity, affliction, calamity, displeasure, distress, evil, favoredness, man, exceeding, great grief, harm, heavy, hurt, ill, favored, mark, mischief, misery, you know, naughty, not pleasant, sadly, sorrow, trouble, vex, wicked, wickedness. Now, let me explain this to you before I pull up some commentary on this. Now, in a sense, when you say adversity, affliction, calamity, displeasure, right, mischief, when we look at it, these are actually the things that God created of that when man will sin or miss the mark, because sin means to miss the mark or not to follow instructions. So you miss the mark, right? You're not following instructions. So when you will sin, he will bring these things on you, calamity, grievous. You know what I'm saying? As he said that he will do them evil. Now, you know, that is evil, you know, but there must be some type of punishment given when people do not follow instructions. If I keep telling you to stop doing something and you continue to do it, eventually I'm going to have to take some type of judgment on you or something to get you to understand that I'm not playing, right? So let's look at some commentary on this. And Judah of Nazareth, you don't want that work, man. You know what it is already. So I suggest you just chill out. Shit on back for be some bad contact. All right, so let's look at this. Um, let's look at this. Hopefully, I can. Let me see if I can. Cause I don't know why this is. He knows. Let me see if I can do something about this size. I don't know what's the deal with this size. What's this? Oh. All right, so let's see if that'll work. I don't know why this is small like it is, but that should not be small. All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at 4. He says, I create evil. The Hebrew word for create is bara, right? H12 and 54. And here it means to bring out, to bring about or bring into existence. The Hebrew word for evil is ra, H7451, which we just read. It is never rendered sin, but evil, because remember, sin is basically missing the mark, basically, from not following instructions. You know, so when we look at sin, that's basically what we can look at it as. You know, and there's different, you know, words for sin. You got sin offering. And mainly you see sin offering is due to the fact of that when you would sin, blood is required of you. So they symbolically or literally will basically show you blood being shed, innocent blood being shed for the remission of sins. So, and that's what happens when you miss the mark, because you was told to follow a pact or certain instructions or a contract or covenant that was confirmed, and you broke that covenant and you missed that mark, then blood was shed in order to compensate for your sin. Now, let's look at this. It says, but evil, calamity, adversity, grievous, sorrow, trouble, distress, bad, affliction, misery, sore, nausea, hurt, and wretchedness. The idea is that God has made the law of sowing and reaping, right? And evil results will come when man sin. God has decreed that misery, wretchedness, sorrow, trouble, and distress will come as a result of sin. Then he gives you Galatians 6:7-8. Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. Right? So it says, uh, uh, Ra is translated evil 442 times, and never with the idea that sin is created by God. Sin and evil is something that is different. If people sin and reap for it, the responsibility for both is theirs. God simply made the law and penalties for breaking the law, which will always be enforced. And that's from the get-go. God has always showed you what will happen when he broke the law. I mean, when you broke the law, you will reap consequences. And this is why when you look at the word raw evil, this is the same word that's in the beginning in Genesis, Genesis chapter 2 and 3, when it says the tree of knowledge of good and evil. When you look at that word, they begin to take on themselves raw because they invited it in their paradigm. They begin to have calamity, wretchedness, ups and downs. This is the things that he told them not to partake of, because these are the very things that will come on them for not following instructions. So I hope that answers your question, but we're going to have to move on from that. Peace to everybody in the room. Let's look at this real quick. Let's look at Zechariah. Where are we at? Zechariah 12. Let me make sure y'all can see my screen, because hold on. Oh man, that's pretty small. And I wish I can get this text a little bit bigger. Let me see, where is it at? I don't know why this is small like that. Hold on. Oh my God. Hold on, you guys. Okay, now it's bigger. Okay, I know why it's small like that. All right, so let's go to Zechariah 12. Okay, so right, it says the burden of the burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundations of the earth, and formed the spirit of man within him. Right? Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about when they shall be in the siege. Now notice it says, behold, I will make Jerusalem. Now this is the city of Jerusalem, a cup of trembling unto all the people round about them. So all these surrounding nations. Now remember, I told you about, oh my God. Remember I told you about tracking Bible prophecy, right? And we see all of these nations that surrounding Israel, right? All of these nations that surrounding them. Prophetic passages about the nations in Psalms 83. You know, in regards to Zechariah, also 14, that's another one. But all this crafty counsel that we see in these nations that surround Israel, right? We see that the political areas of Moab is central Jordan. Gabal is the city in Lebanon. Ammon is northern Jordan. Amalek, the Negev, and to the Sinai. Philistia is Gaza. Now remember, these are all the problems that's happening in Israel with them fighting, bombing, and shooting missiles across the Gaza Strip. It says by comparing an ancient map to current maps, it is easy to find the political areas that come against Israel in the Great Middle East War. The nations within the Confederacy are Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Gaza is technically part of the land. These refugees are known today as the Palestinians, who are trying to form a nation apart from Israel, consisting of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. The people groups: tents of Edom, Palestinians, Ishmaelites, Arabs, Hagarites, clan of Ishmaelites, inhabitants of Tyre, Lebanese, the descendants of Lot, Moabites, and Ammonites. So, you know, he gives you basically the whole conflict here on what's going on. And let's jump back to the scriptures and look at it and see what can we find from this. Now, when we look at the scriptures, right, we see that, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about it. It says, when they shall be in the siege. Now, who's in the siege? That is the question. Who is in Jerusalem and who is in the siege? And the Black Hebrew Israelites have failed to actually answer this. They failed to answer this, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Now, wait a minute, somebody is in this siege. These people are not just gathering around Israel for no reason, right? So there's a conflict that's in this land, and this conflict has the nations stirred up round about Jerusalem, and the children or the people are in a siege. When they shall end the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. In other words, all people is going to be burdened concerning what's going on in Jerusalem. I mean, if this conflict is really clear. Everybody is burdensome behind what's going on in Jerusalem, to the point to where they cannot stand the Jews or anybody that is an Israelite, anybody that even deals with the Bible. Altogether, they don't want it. But these Jews, they say, right, is the problem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. Right? Everybody that got the Jews on their mind, that these are not the Jews, and the Jews are at this point doing wicked things. And God said he will turn ungodliness away from these guys, right? Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. And that day, said the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment and his rider with madness. And I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah, right? And I will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah. Now, wait a minute. This is saying the governors of Judah shall say in their heart. So that means that Judah has to have a government. And we see that there is a government in Judah, in Jerusalem. And we see that that government establishes Israel, right? Now, this is a partial fulfillment. Because now we can see that God will actually have brought these people back into the land. Not all of them, but a portion that has established a government until the end, until all of them come back to the land. And we've seen this before. This happened many of times where God has allowed them to come back to the land, but not all came. But in the end times, he will gather all these people back into the land, into their very own land. But now there's conflict for that. There's conflict, wars and desolations. He says, I will open up my eyes upon the house of Judah, and I will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their hearts, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts their God. Notice he said, the governors of Judah shall say in their hearts. The inhabitants of Jerusalem. I mean, man, it doesn't get any clearer than that. Somebody lying. Peace to the Sister Cherry, Sister Lita, and all of y'all. Somebody is lying about being a Jew. Or somebody is lying and saying that these guys ain't Jews. Because it's clear here, and that day will I make the governors of Judah like an heart of fire among wood. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem. There are inhabitants of Jerusalem, which shall be the strength, which shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts and of hosts their God. So, I mean, I'm saying something going on here. You can't get past this. Now, there are inhabitants in Jerusalem, and listen, I'm not talking about nobody that has not a government set up. But Israel, when Christ comes back, will have a government established. And the nations will gather against these people. Now, one will have to ask the question, is this before the gathering, or is this after the coming of Christ when he gathers them? You have to ask that. Well, this is actually before the coming of Christ. So when Christ comes, Israel, or a portion of Israel in Jerusalem, will have had a government. And he will come to help them when the nations gather about them. So let's look at some other things. You know, if you look and see, this is why they won't speak on passages like this. You never see Nasi Yashavel. You never see the brother, what's his name? What what's the brother's name? Divine Ron Prospect. They won't teach stuff like this. They won't teach it. You know why? Because they know that what they're teaching is trash. And when you look at this, they have to pay homage to the Jews, to the real Jews. The ones who had the Torah to where they can even read Torah linguistically coming from them. Not saying that some of those people are not Israel, but the majority of those people are not. They are converts that we see that are saying that they are Jews in America. That's his bottom line. These people are Jews. And they may say, well, they're wicked, Laurent. Well, the Bible says that they was cut off. And that he will turn ungodliness away from them. Now look at this. I will pour, look at verse 10. I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem. I mean, man, it don't get no clearer than that. The spirit of grace and supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. So evidently, when these nations gather against Israel, Christ is going to come and save these people. And once he saved them and take over and set up a divine government, he's going to bring Israel and have the Gentiles to bring Israel back into the land with those that are already in the land. That's what the Bible teaches. Now let's look at Zechariah 14. And let's look at some things, matter of fact. Let's look at some commentary, because we got the commentary over here. I don't discriminate on good commentary. It says the burden, hold on, jump up. The burden, let's look at it. Verse 2, notes for verse 2. Cup of trembling. It says God's supernatural defense of Jerusalem will be so terrible that all nations fighting against the Jews would tremble and shake for fear of the Lord who will be visible over Israel, right? All that burden themselves with it shall be cut to pieces. All that seek to destroy the Jews in Jerusalem will be cut off. Zechariah 14, let's look at it in 1. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and they spoil. Thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Now, why is he gathering all nations against Jerusalem to battle if there's no Jews there? I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Why would he gather them all together against Jerusalem if there's no Jews there? Let's look at it. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished. Somebody is in this city. And half of the city shall go forth to captivity. Now, who is going into captivity here? Somebody going into captivity. Now, when you ask them to read these verses and chapters, they will tell you this is after the coming of the Lord. No, this is before the coming of the Lord. So before Christ comes, there has to be somebody in this land with a government. And when we go to Revelation 11, that's how we explain the temple getting built and the outer courts given over unto the Gentiles to trod underfoot. The Israelites have to regain the Temple Mount in order to build that temple. Otherwise than that, it won't happen. So there's going to take conflict to do so. So we see that there is going to be wars in this land, and we see that the Gentiles has been trotting down this land ever since Israel was led captivity unto all nations. And so now that when Israel is partially coming back, according to the scriptures, because we see it here that Israel going to be in this land before the second coming of Christ. Now we have to worry about conflicting with the people that's in the land, and this struggle is going to last all the way until the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled. Even now, the government is struggling with bombings. The government is struggling with all types of attacks by the nations that are in the surrounding them and within them. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. It says, and half of the city should go forth into captivity. Half of the city should go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight as against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand upon, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward. Let me jump down. Oh, matter of fact, I can't get it that far. But anyways, you get my point though. Now, this guy, this is Dake Study Notes. He even gives you a passage in Revelations 9:11 through 19. And when I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man but himself knew, that no man knew but himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. This is Christ. And the armies which were in heaven, notice he said the armies which were in heaven. Now, I want y'all to note that these are not only angels, but men too. Enoch said the Lord coming with 10,000s of his saints, and 10,000s and 10,000s of his saints, basically, to execute judgment upon the ungodly, according to Jude, right? And it says, and the armies which were in heaven follow him upon white horses. Now, what was they doing in heaven? Somebody gonna have to stop teaching that the soul sleeps. That is retarded. Clothed in fine linen and white and clean. And we see also that when they was clothed in this fine linen in Revelation 7, we see people been given robes and clothed in fine linen. And out of his mouth go forth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. This for William Bell, because this didn't happen in 70 AD. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he shall tread the winepress of the furious and wrath of Almighty God. Right? So we see that this is Christ coming, as we see in Zechariah 14, Zechariah 2 and 3. So let's jump over a little bit. Jump over to Zechariah 14. All right, Zechariah 14. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, as I read that before, Thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee, for I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken. Now remember, Jerusalem and the city. We're not talking about all of Israel. We're talking about them basically coming down, taking over those lands, and coming down to the very city, Jerusalem. Those nations are surrounded, coming down to that very city. Don't let nobody trick you and say, oh, there's many of Jews, because there is many of Jews that's in the land, but we're specifically talking about the governors and in this land where this capital at, concerning Jerusalem, the city. It says, then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations, verse 3. Let's look at this. Look at the notes on this. I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. This refers to the mobilization of the nations to Armageddon. Ezekiel 38 and 39, Joel 3. He gives you the passages on what to read. Now look, it says the city shall be taken. The city will be taken the second time by the Antichrist at the very end of the tribulation period. And just before the second coming of Christ, the houses will be rifled, the women will be ravished, and half of the city will go into captivity. Then suddenly, Christ will make his appearance with his armies and defeat the Antichrist in a one-day battle. At this time, he will take over the kingdoms of this world to reign forever on earth. Right? He gives you the scriptures to those passages. Now watch this. Notice it says, then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations. Then when Jerusalem is half taken, and when it seems that all Israel will be totally destroyed, the Lord will come to fight the nations under the Antichrist and set up his kingdom on earth to remain eternally. Man, I can exegete these passages more than he can on here. I could take you to Daniel. I could take you to so many passages and where he's going to set up his kingdom on earth. As when he fought in the day of battle, this perhaps refers to the fighting against the Egyptians as in Exodus 14 and 14, 15 and 3. So, look at this right here, though. When his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Now, look at this passage he got in 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians is pretty good because, hold on, because it also talks about the son of perdition going into the temple and basically sitting in it and saying that he is God. So there will be a third temple being built. They're preparing to build it right now, right? So look at this, what it says. It says, let's look at this. In flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God, and that obey not the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from his glory of his power, when he shall come to be glorified in his saints and to be admired in all them that believe, because our testimony among you was believed in that day. So it says, and to you who are troubled, rest with us when the Lord Jesus shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels. In flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God. This is everybody. The gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, who will be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power. So, these passages are solid. I want to deal with one more, and then we're going to jump to Revelations 11 concerning the temple. Now, in Revelations 11 talks about the third temple, of what I would call the fourth temple besides Herod's temple, but we're going to show you that. And there will be a fifth temple in the millennium kingdom, because the third temple or the fourth temple, I'm sorry, will be destroyed. You had the first temple, which deals with the temple of Solomon. Then the second was, which is Zerubbabel and Ezra. And then you also had your third, which is called Herod's temple. That that was kind of a little bit, how can you say it, modernized and also made bigger. So they called it Herod's temple. That was the third temple. Then it was torn down. Then the fourth temple will be the temple that we're going to see here in the future. It says, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, rise and measure the temple of God. There's going to be a temple of God. Notice he says, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar. So you measure the temple, the altar, and watch this, and them that worship therein. So you measure, you basically measure those things. But he says, but the court which is without the temple, leave out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall be, they thread underfoot 42 months, right? 42 months. So we see that the temple, the people that's worshiping therein, and the altar is good, but the people that's outside of that temple, what does that mean? That means that Israel will again regain Jerusalem, but they will lose it again. And they will lose a lot, and gaining and building the temple will cause them to lose the city. Why? Because once they built that temple, it's going to cause some great controversy to the city out of that temple. But the people are measured therein, the altar and the temple of God. It will be built, but the city is going to be in chaos because of this temple. And God will use witnesses. It says, I will give power unto my two witnesses. They're going to help a lot of those times during that time. It says, reed like unto a rod. A measuring reed was about 12.5 foot long. Watch when it says, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. This measuring, right? It says this measuring is for chastening, not building, so to speak. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. So we see that the temple is already built already, but they're measuring it because the temple is going to be cool and those that worship therein, but the people that's outside of that temple is going to get chastised. That city is going to be in chaos, and eventually it's going to come to the temple too, just as well, because the Antichrist will come to that temple, as discussed in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, when it says he will sit in that temple and say that he is God. Now watch what it says. 5 temples in history and prophecy. As I stated before, we had Solomon's temple, Zerubbabel's temple, Herod's temple, and the future Jewish temple in the days of the Antichrist, right? The Antichrist will come and sit in that temple. Watch what it says in 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. There will be another temple. And we see Revelations 11, 1 through 2. After the 42 months is broken up, the Antichrist will. Let's look what it says. It says the court here refers to the court of the Gentiles. It is not to be measured and given over to them, for it is already their part. The rest of the temple and Jerusalem will be taken over by the Antichrist for 42 months, right? So after that, so the temple going to be cool, and then after them 42 months, that stuff is going to be taken over. It says the rest of the temple and Jerusalem will be taken over by the Antichrist for 42 months. Right? For it is given to the Gentiles. Now, let's look at this. The times of the Gentiles did not end in 1843, 1844, 1914, or whatever, or any other date set by man thus far. The times of the Gentiles cannot end until the end of the 42 months. Let's look at this. It says the Jews must become victorious over the Arabs again in order to get control of Jerusalem. So they have to basically come victorious over the Arabs and to get control over Jerusalem so that it can be given back into the hands of the Gentiles for 42 months. In other words, when Israel gets control, according to Zechariah 12, Zechariah 14, of Israel, of Jerusalem, eventually that control basically is gonna, the Antichrist is gonna cause many people to come up against that. They're gonna take some of that city back. Since the Jews must become victorious over the Arabs again in order to get control of Jerusalem, so that it can be given back unto the hands of the Gentiles for 42 months. So it will be given back unto the hands of the Gentiles. There will be much going back and forth of these people fighting with each other in this conflict. It says the Jews will have to be defeated by the Antichrist before he can take over the city for 42 months. So he's going to have to defeat a lot of those people in that land before he could take over that city for 42 months. This is going to be a fight. Now, we see the two witnesses will be there, but they will be killed when their ministry is over with. And so the Antichrist will come into that land and take over that temple. Eventually, after the 42 months is up, he coming into that land. Right? Well, I'm sorry, I'm not add to, but he coming to that land, before that, in the midst of that, in the middle of this of the week, he's coming to that land. He's gonna take over that. That's gonna be his, and he's gonna cause what we just seen in Revelation. Second Thessalonians 2:5, abomination of desolations, by setting up his altar and then saying that he is God. According to Revelation chapter 13 and also Matthew 25, 24 and 15. That didn't happen in 70 AD. Remember, Christ is talking about certain things that's going to happen. So I just wanted to bring out those things. Hopefully somebody gets some understanding. I gave you a good site that you might want to look up, concerning the tabs, Palestinian refugee camps, 1948. So, a lot of great information. Ishmaelites and the Hagarites, a lot of great information. The descendants of Lot, where they at. Pages and pages of information. This site is tracking Bible prophecy. Look at the menu. Look at all of these things. They got, I showed how, as of updated today, on the 26th, look what you got. Look what you got. You got headline news. Headline news. You can't do nothing about, that's good information. But anyways, with that being said, I just want to say peace and blessings to everybody out there. Hopefully, and then, with that being said, peace.